I cannot pass up the month of May, which is Behavioral Health and Addictions Awareness Month. So this is really important, I think, for any group, but hearing loss especially, because after a while, sometimes we can become a little bit edgy, a little bit nervous, a little bit anxious to be by ourselves or to travel by ourselves, or depressed, sad, crying sometimes of the issues that we face out there at work or at home or with family. So, you know, things can get difficult with hearing loss. There's no denying that. And it can be temporary, passing, you know, and we can work at fixing issues and not a big deal, and we just continue on our way. But sometimes these things start to stick, and we end up sad all the time. We end up frustrated. We end up angry. We end up very anxious, very jittery, very nervous, to the point where we're starting to have trouble functioning in everyday life. Sometimes people with hearing loss or deafness, sometimes we slip into bad habits such as an addiction of some kind, whether it's gambling, whether it is drugs, whether it's alcohol, because we're not able to grasp the solutions that might be around the corner, might be at our fingertips, and we're not aware of it. So I want to spend this training in some tips and some encouragement for those who are really getting on edge about hearing loss and can't find the way out or the way in, or find solutions for the emotions from within that are directly connected to the hearing loss. I remember when I was learning about my hearing loss, which, as you've heard my story, would go up and down. I would have hearing, the next day I wouldn't, and then I wouldn't have any hearing for the next 2-3 days, and then it would come back, and it was just nuts. So it was just really important for me to be able to verbalize that and let people know, if you're talking to me and I have no clue, I can't hear you, I might have to say, I'm sorry, I have no sound, I can't hear you. Let's follow up this conversation a little bit later, or you can send me an email, so there are all kinds of solutions. So sometimes from the reaction, we're not able to get to or grasp or grab a hold of that solution that would help us in communicating and making our day better and making it better for someone else. So, for the most part, people have good intentions. They want to interact with us, or they need to interact with us for whatever reason, and we're just having a bad hearing day, or just having a bad hearing day every day. So, and we're getting more and more frustrated. So, this is when you really have to sit down with yourself and think about what tools will be helpful for you. So, if it's at work, I want you to know that in terms of phones, you have the right to have 2 captioning phones, one at home and one at work. And I didn't know that. I just happened to learn that because I was in a bind in the place I was working. So they told me, oh, no, we'll set up a caption phone at your place of work. So it really was helpful for me. So just so you know, out there in the United States, we have the right to have 2 caption phones, not at home, but one at home, one at work. So just in case you have a work situation that you need to improve. So that's one tool that will take some stress off of you when that phone rings. Communicating, if you're on the floor, you're selling whatever, pieces of paper or dry erase board, that's a cheap accommodation. So, or a pocket talker, so that, the sound is amplified a bit, and that helps you while you're on the floor in a factory, in a store, just a pocket talker. They will amplify the sound a little bit more. So we need to, and you might say, oh, that's embarrassing, Lisa, to have something hanging there, then clip it on your pants, clip it on your skirt. Sometimes we have to let go. I think there are so many solutions these days to our hearing loss needs that, we shouldn't have to go into overdrive emotionally. So sometimes it's conflict socially with others. So, and especially, I think the worst place is at home. So, believe it or not. But, people just say things like, oh, you should just do whatever. You should just listen, or you should just, because the one with hearing loss is you and me. So we have to find that solution, and that we feel comfortable with. I've seen people also extremely nervous to be home by themselves. They're just a nervous wreck by the time someone gets home. And they're very grateful that someone got home finally. So they're just a nervous wreck. And for that, sometimes you might need a little bit of therapy, a little bit of counseling. Won't hurt anyone. So, keep in mind that for conflicts with others, or anxiety that's getting out of hand, I think it's important to consider counseling and going to counseling for a few months, and to work that out, because you don't want it to get out of hand. And if you already have slipped into addictions and it's causing issues, then really important to get into treatment and be able to break, the pattern. So, not that, addictions are problematic in so many ways for your health, for your relationship with others, for your work. So it's really important to work that out. So get treatment. There's treatment everywhere these days. So, it can be online, but I think that it might be the best to do it in person for a while and just alert them you have hearing loss or you're deaf. You can look for a therapist who does sign language. There's a few of them out there. Or, ask the clinic to please hire a sign language interpreter when you come. And that is their obligation. Their obligation, not yours. So that's really important to know and to hold your horses on that. If you, behavior health is so important. If you let it be a runaway train, what might start to happen is physically you start to become ill. And you start going and running to the ER for all kinds of things. So if you're trapped in that zone, secure a primary care doctor, talk to them about what's going on, talk to them about your emotions versus your physical needs, and see if you can put those together and work with those two issues together. And for the doctor to see you a little bit more often, maybe every 3 months, and for you to also go counseling. So you're having 2 tracks, one physical health needs and the other one behavioral health, for them to finally join and be together and be good together. So that's really important. So behavioral health, physical, bring them together so they can walk hand in hand, help each other. So that's really important because it happens. It's not a bad thing. It's not a scary thing. It's just overwhelming to start going to the ER over and over. So, anxiety. So you have anxiety, you have depression, in which life starts to get really, really dark. You start becoming very lack of hope and sad and crying a lot and just not wanting to be out there or to relate with others because it's so frustrating and life is getting darker and darker. That's important to, go to counseling. That's going to help. And you might say, Lisa, that's embarrassing. And no, it's not. It's another tool. It's another tool. There are people out there who have special training who will keep your information private and will help you as often as needed. They can be on call, but not too much. And for you to visit them, once a week, then once a month, and then once every other month, and then things start to get better and better, and you start to see the light of day. That's what happens. So you have to be open, maybe, to some medication, because sometimes depression is genetic in some families. So you might be, in that zone. So you have to be aware of that. So depression, anxiety, and the health issue, the health and the behavioral health, to bring those two together so they work together and that you're healthier. Anger. Anger is an emotional explosion of emotions, and you're angry all the time. And you lash out at people, and you're angry at yourself, angry at others. You're just, and things start to get out of control. So that can be worked out. You yourself might have gone through issues, trauma, and that needs to be worked out, and it's triggering this anger, and the hearing loss is not helping at all. Hearing loss is not helping the anger. So really important to jump in with a therapist and work those things out so that you become the person you really want to be. So think about that. Nobody wants to spend their life angry. That takes up a lot of energy. It pushes people away. And who wants to live a solitary life? So really important. Anger, work that out. So you can get a good girlfriend, so you can get a wife. Or if you're in a marriage and things are really on the rocks, you really want to jump into therapy and just say to the wife, I am sorry, this is not good, I'm going to go to therapy. So do it for yourself, not for others, because the moment that person is not in your life, then why are you going to therapy? Do it for yourself. That's the important thing. Do it for yourself because you want to improve. You want to have a more peaceful, balanced, and sensible life, along with the hearing loss. But the hearing loss, you know that technically you can work things out, but the behavior really needs to be changed to positive behavior. so, so we got depression, anxiety, and we have health, and we have the anger. And those areas are the ones that hit us the most in hearing loss. So, be aware, check yourself. And you might not be at the extreme, like going off the cliff, but catch yourself before you do. And go to therapy before you get to the edge, before you get to that cliff. So that, you're in counseling, but not too long, maybe 6 weeks, maybe less. So, catch yourself. See if you need a little tune-up in counseling. And that's fine too. So I want to encourage everyone to be aware of their behavioral health needs this month of May with behavioral health and in drug addiction, to check themselves and say and see if you need, some help, some support, some guidance, some light, and find a new path for yourself, a new path, and a positive, healthy one. I want everyone in my life. I want everyone. I want you and you and you to be better, to be happy, despite the hearing loss. Despite the hearing loss. I don't want anybody in a hole. No holes. Because we can do this. You've got this. Promise yourself this month of May that you'll work on one thing that you struggle with in regards to your hearing loss and your behavior health. Just one thing. And then next month, you can work on another thing that is hard for you. And then another. So let's dedicate this month to our behavioral health needs. And we'll see how we improve. Take care.